story starts with Hyunjin, our protagonist, falling down from the top of a building, his mind racing with confusion about why he's falling. He had endured the torments of bullying and was close to graduating, but now finds himself in this dire situation. After 3 months in a coma, doctors declare him in a vegetative state, with no hope of recovery. Though he can hear voices around him, he's unable to respond. His grandmother sits beside his bed, tearfully pleading with him to wake up, refusing to give up despite the doctor's advice. She raised him after his parents' death, and her heartbreak is palpable. Days later, his brother visits and confides that the bullies who tormented him are now targeting him, leaving him battered. Their grandmother has taken a job at a restaurant to cover the hospital bills, injuring herself in the process. The family's suffering would have been less if he had just died, his brother laments through tears. Hyunjin, trapped in his mind, wishes he could help them. 3 years pass, and he remains comatose. Doctors discuss his case, noting how long it has been since Hyunjin first arrived. They mention that his grandmother has collapsed at work. He thinks of the bullies, Park Mincheol, Miho, Changsuk, and Yuncheol, and the teachers who protected them, wishing for a miracle to return to the past and confront them. A decade later, he is still in the same state, overwhelmed by despair to the point that tears escape his eyes as he prays for an end. Miraculously, he suddenly awakens to find himself back in his classroom. Disbelieving, he pinches himself to confirm it's real. He even stabs himself with his pen for confirmation that it's not a dream. He has returned to his school days. Witnessing a boy being bullied, the spark of his own suffering, he decides not to stay silent this time. He stands up and tells Mincheol to stop, ready to face the challenge head-on. Mincheol asks if he can handle the consequences. All eyes were on Hyunjin and Mincheol, the classroom holding its collective breath. No one dared to intervene, stunned into silence. The tension was palpable, and the students watched in shock as Hyunjin threw a powerful punch at Mincheol. It was a moment he had long envisioned, the moment that had haunted him for years. Hyunjin vividly recalled the day his life had changed forever. Mincheol had been half listening to the teacher, more interested in his next gaming session of Legend Online. He was a notorious bully, exploiting his peers for his amusement. That day, he had approached Young Min, a quiet and diligent student, and demanded that he boost his online character. Young Min, fearing retribution, reluctantly agreed, and his grades began to suffer as a result. Mincheol's demands escalated, eventually coercing Young Min into spending his own money on in-game items. The stress became unbearable, and Young Min finally refused. It was the first time Hyunjin had witnessed such brutality firsthand. He had wanted to avoid trouble but couldn't ignore the injustice done to someone who had helped him with his studies. When he intervened, the teachers arrived and defused the situation, but that only marked the beginning of his torment. From that day on, Mincheol's gang singled him out, subjecting him to relentless bullying. They beat him daily, dragging him into their cruel games and leaving him with no respite. Now, as he landed the first punch, Hyunjin felt a decade's worth of pent-up rage and frustration surge through him. He grabbed Mincheol's head and slammed it onto the desk, the impact reverberating through the room. He hit him again and again, each blow fueled by years of suffering. The classroom erupted into chaos, but Hyunjin was beyond caring. He threw Mincheol to the floor and kicked him viciously, indifferent to the potential consequences. Mincheol's friends, alarmed, rushed to intervene. They pleaded with Hyunjin to stop, but he refused, his eyes blazing with a newfound determination. Miho, one of Mincheol's closest allies, recognized the fierce resolve in Hyunjin's expression and felt a flicker of fear. Changsuk, the group's strongest member, stepped forward, declaring he would end this once and for all. Just as he was about to attack, a student shouted that a teacher was approaching. Mincheol, battered and bewildered, ordered his gang to disperse, promising retribution later. He stumbled to his feet, trying to process what had just happened. He remembered Hyunjin's initial punch, but the rest was a blur of pain and fury. Hyunjin, usually the reserved class president, had never posed a threat before. But now, he had crossed a line, and Mincheol vowed to make him pay. As the teacher entered the classroom, Mincheol and his friends seethed with anger and humiliation. They knew they had to act quickly to reassert their dominance. When the class ended, Mincheol sprang to his feet, eager for revenge. But Hyunjin was ready. He leaped across the room, delivering a powerful kick that sent Mincheol sprawling to the ground. The classroom erupted once more, the balance of power irrevocably shifted. Hyunjin seized Mincheol by the hair, yanking him up and sneering, "Let's pick up where we left off. You wanted a fight, right?" Confusion and fear flickered across Mincheol's bruised face as he struggled to understand the relentless onslaught. Meanwhile, in a nearby classroom, Changsuk's lesson ended. He and his cronies, anticipating trouble, hurried toward Hyunjin's class. As they approached, they were startled to find a crowd of students gathered outside, murmuring amongst themselves. Pushing through the throng, they were stunned to see Hyunjin still pummeling Mincheol. Changsuk, the most formidable of the group, sprinted toward Hyunjin, who had been bracing himself for this moment. Hyunjin knew that while Mincheol was manageable, Changsuk posed a far greater threat. Yet, this time was different. He had to act decisively. Grabbing a nearby padlock, he swung it at Changsuk's head with all his might. The heavy metal struck Changsuk repeatedly, and Hyunjin coldly remarked, "No matter how much you train, you can't withstand iron." Changsuk, dazed and bleeding, crumpled to the floor. Hyunjin didn't let up. He straddled Cho Youngtaek, next member of gang, and unleashed a barrage of punches until his adversary lay unconscious. With Cho Youngtaek out of the picture, Hyunjin turned his attention to Miho, the last of the trio. Miho was visibly terrified, his eyes wide with fear. Hyunjin advanced on Miho, who trembled, clearly shaken by the sight of his fallen friends. "Ready to finish what we started?" Hyunjin asked, his voice cold and steady. Miho's hands quivered, and just as he was about to swing, the classroom door burst open. A teacher stormed in, demanding they stop. Miho, anticipating severe punishment, pleaded with the teacher. He feared that the school would hold him accountable for the fight, given the brutality of the injuries inflicted on Mincheol and Changsuk. The teacher, glaring at Hyunjin, took him to the office, berating him along the way. "Do you realize what you've done? Some of them are in the hospital with severe injuries. This is a major issue for the school," the teacher scolded. Hyunjin, defiant, met the teacher's gaze. "This isn't the first violent incident at this school. You need to handle it discreetly," he replied. The teacher's face turned red with anger, and he slapped Hyunjin hard across the face. Hyunjin's mind flashed back to the root of his suffering, not just the bullies, but the cowardly adults complicit in the abuse. Hyunjin then leaned in, his voice low but firm. "You'd better back off. I know about the bribes you've been taking from parents. And I know about your affair with the English teacher. If you push this, I'll make sure everyone else knows too." 10 years earlier, Hyunjin had hoped the teachers would help him when he first reported the bullying. Instead, the teachers had called everyone to the office, only for Miho to dismiss it as a joke, claiming Hyunjin had misunderstood. The matter was swept under the rug, and the bullies had walked away unpunished. As they left the office that day, Miho had threatened him, promising to teach him a lesson. They dragged Hyunjin outside the school, and Miho started to beat him mercilessly. At that moment, Hyunjin's hatred for his teacher grew, cursing him for not intervening or investigating the situation. His teacher, Mr. Kim, had appeared during the assault, witnessing the brutal scene. Hyunjin had hoped Mr. Kim would finally grasp the severity of the bullying and take action. However, Mr. Kim remained silent, his face a mask of indifference. Later, Hyunjin learned the truth. Mr. Kim had been accepting bribes from parents, including Miho's, and turning a blind eye to the bullying. One day, Hyunjin's anger boiled over, and he punched Miho in the face. Miho's parents, influential and wealthy, quickly intervened, demanding the principal expel Hyunjin. His grandmother had to apologize profusely on his behalf, making Hyunjin realize the depth of his helplessness in a system where power and money held sway. Even the school's violence committee merely punished him, leaving the real perpetrators unscathed. After falling into a coma, Hyunjin understood that revenge couldn't be achieved through brute strength alone. He needed to navigate the complexities of adult corruption and complicity. Back in the present, he confronted Mr. Kim, blackmailing him with the knowledge of his corruption and affair with the English teacher, who was a mother of 3. Fearful, Mr. Kim asked what Hyunjin wanted. Hyunjin demanded that he continue his corrupt ways but stay out of Hyunjin's matters. Mr. Kim, realizing the precariousness of his situation, agreed reluctantly. Hyunjin knew Mr. Kim was just the first step in his plan and began preparing his next move. Meanwhile, Miho was seething with rage, vowing to kill Hyunjin. He was confident Mr. Kim would back him, at least enough to get Hyunjin expelled. Later, Hyunjin re-entered the classroom and challenged Miho openly. He punched Miho so hard that he fell from his chair to the floor. Hyunjin jumped on him, kicking his face relentlessly while Miho begged for mercy and called for help. The other students watched in stunned silence, paralyzed by fear. Mr. Kim observed from the window, hesitant to intervene. Hyunjin leaned down, whispering to Miho that no one would help him, emphasizing the school's apathy and corruption. Mr. Kim's mind raced as he watched the brutal scene unfold. He thought about the earlier incident where 3 students had been hospitalized. He knew the school administration would want to avoid further escalation, yet he also understood the power Miho's wealthy parents wielded. They owned multiple residential complexes and were prominent figures in Dacian, providing substantial financial support to the school. Mr. Kim realized that failing to handle the situation delicately could result in severe backlash from these influential parents. The school's recent renovation, funded largely through donations from Miho's parents, loomed large in Mr. Kim's mind. His own acceptance of their money added to his anxiety. If they turned against him, even his usual methods of manipulation wouldn't protect him. Desperate to find a way to separate Miho from the growing scandal, he hurried to the classroom. His heart sank when he saw Hyunjin already beating Miho savagely. Quietly, he backed away, knowing that his affair with the English teacher, if exposed, would end his career. Inside the classroom, Hyunjin continued his assault on Miho, finally tiring and sitting on a desk, surveying the damage. He understood that as long as he didn't target Miho, he could manage the fallout. But if he had chosen to avoid conflict, he would never have punched Mincheol upon returning. After enduring years as a vegetative patient, his desire for intense revenge consumed him. As expected, the news of the fight spread quickly. 3 students were hospitalized, and the principal was adamant about punishing Hyunjin. The witnesses' accounts made it impossible to cover up the incident. The principal, fearing backlash from Miho's influential parents, convened a meeting with the student committee. He insisted that Hyunjin be severely punished. Min Young, the English teacher, supported the principal, advocating for Hyunjin's expulsion. However, Mr. Kim defended Hyunjin, pointing out that Mincheol's gang had a history of bullying. He argued that Hyunjin had been a victim before becoming a perpetrator and that punishing him harshly would be unjust. Nonetheless, the principal remained resolute, knowing that appeasing Miho's parents was crucial. The decision was made to suspend Hyunjin until a review committee could convene in a week to determine his punishment. As Hyunjin left the principal's office, Mr. Kim followed, whispering that he had done his best. Hyunjin threatened him, warning that he would reveal his secrets after graduation. Back in his classroom, Hyunjin gathered his belongings, ready to execute the next phase of his plan. As he walked home, he reflected on the familiar alleyways, finally feeling a sense of purpose. He arrived at his shabby villa, number 0, the house bought with his parents' death insurance. Grateful for the roof over his head, he called his grandmother, remembering she would be at work. With no time for sentimentality, Hyunjin set his sights on his next steps. He planned to dismantle the power structures of his tormentors and build his own foundation within 2 years. To do this, he identified 3 essential conditions. First, he needed to recruit a loyal team to take down the violent perpetrators. Second, he required allies who shared his goals, even the best plan would fail without the means to execute it. Finally, he needed experience and a solid background to ensure nothing could obstruct his path. Meanwhile, across town, Chang Boeum, the eldest son of Myeongjin Constructions, was causing a scene at the police station. His loud threats and attempts to bribe the officers underscored his dangerous reputation. The police, wary of provoking a powerful figure in Dacian, knew they had to tread carefully. Faced with the undeniable evidence of his actions, the police had no choice but to follow protocol. Chang Boeum had been involved in a fight, leading to his detention. He quickly realized the gravity of his mistake, especially given the ongoing succession race within his family. His father had recently announced that either he or his younger brother would take over the family business. Chang, with only a high school diploma, was at a disadvantage compared to his younger brother, who had graduated from a prestigious university and was married to a prominent woman in Dacian. This had allowed his brother to secure a strong position in the succession race. As the officer reprimanded Chang for attacking innocent people, the situation seemed bleak. Just then, Hyunjin arrived, stating that he was there to testify on Chang's behalf. He requested to meet with the appropriate authorities and produced a video showing that the bystanders had initiated the altercation while Chang had merely been passing by. Hyunjin explained that he had witnessed the incident and had obtained footage from a nearby parked car's dashcam. The video clearly showed Chang attempting to avoid the confrontation, only defending himself when provoked. Chang, relieved and impressed by Hyunjin's intervention, praised him for revealing the truth. The officer, concluding the investigation, released Chang, cautioning that the matter might require further review. Chang, grateful for Hyunjin's help, threatened the officer to remember his face and maintain peace. Outside the station, Chang thanked Hyunjin profusely and offered him a substantial reward, which Hyunjin accepted without hesitation. Chang noted Hyunjin's unusual confidence and lack of hesitation in accepting such a large sum. Hyunjin then posed a provocative question, asking if Chang thought the incident was a mere coincidence given the timing of the succession race. He suggested it was orchestrated and offered to provide proof. Intrigued, Chang listened as Hyunjin showed him the full dashcam footage, revealing that the attackers had been loitering suspiciously for half an hour before Chang's arrival. As soon as Chang appeared, they instigated the fight, suggesting a deliberate setup. Chang, initially reluctant to suspect his younger brother, couldn't ignore the evidence. Hyunjin's assertion that Suk, Chang's brother, was behind the scheme to tarnish Chang's reputation struck a chord. Hyunjin's detailed explanation and the video evidence painted a clear picture of the conspiracy. Reflecting on the past, Chang recalled how Suk had always been the instigator of their familial conflicts. This new revelation led to a dramatic confrontation between the brothers. Chang, in a fit of rage, confronted Suk, resulting in a physical altercation that left Suk permanently disabled. Their father, enraged by the brothers' incompetence, declared neither of them fit to inherit the family business. The incident became a scandal, with the public mocking the brothers and their feud. Memes and posts circulated online. But that only happened in previous timeline. And because of that, Hyunjin was able to know where and when he should approach Chang. He knew that exacting revenge required not just strength but strategic alliances and a clear understanding of the power dynamics at play. With the first phase of his plan complete, he prepared to take the next steps toward dismantling the corrupt structures that had once controlled his life. After that pivotal incident, the chairman decided to hire a professional manager, which led Myunjin Construction to ascend to the ranks of conglomerates. The eldest son, Chang, was not inherently evil but was seen as incompetent, characterized by a typical laid-back temperament. In contrast, the second son, Suk, was a vicious and cunning individual. Hyunjin saw an opportunity to leverage these traits to his advantage. Hyunjin approached Chang with an offer to help him take revenge on his younger brother and become the chairman of Myunjin Construction. Chang found this proposition absurd, especially coming from a high school student. However, Hyunjin shocked him by revealing that Suk's informants surrounded him, even among his closest aides. Chang, bewildered by this revelation, left the cafe, deep in thought. As he stood outside, a man asked him not to smoke, to which Chang reacted angrily, threatening to destroy the man's cafe. Hyunjin watched from a distance, noting Chang's reckless behavior. Born as the eldest son of Myunjin Construction, Chang had always been a time bomb in Daesan, known for his unpredictable and destructive nature. Despite this, Hyunjin saw him as a perfect pawn in his plan. Chang reflected on Hyunjin's words. He realized that his brother Suk was superior in almost every aspect and that his chances of becoming the successor were dwindling. Desperation led him to reconsider Hyunjin's offer. He decided to hear out the young man's plan before making a final decision. Hyunjin explained his strategy. He acknowledged that Suk surpassed Chang in every measurable way. However, he pointed out that their father, the chairman, had initiated the succession race because he still believed the eldest son had a desire to lead. Hyunjin's plan was simple: what if Suk, despite his superiority, were to fall to the bottom, where Chang currently stood? Meanwhile, Suk was enraged upon learning that his plan had failed. He blamed his father's outdated thinking. Just then, he received a call from his secretary informing him that his wife had broken into Han Sung's office, where his girlfriend was present. Rushing to the scene, Suk was horrified to find his wife there, having already attacked his girlfriend. Back at the cafe, Hyunjin outlined 3 critical factors to win the succession war: background, reputation, and ability. He bluntly told Chang that he had already lost in terms of background and reputation. While Chang had been indulging in a life of luxury, Suk had proven his worth through various accomplishments. Hyunjin's plan to reclaim these 3 things began with the first: background. To achieve this, they needed to separate Suk from his wife. This strategy would destabilize Suk's foundation and create a scandal that would tarnish his reputation, thereby leveling the playing field for Chang. As Hyunjin detailed the plan, Chang realized the depth of the young man's insight and strategy. Despite his initial skepticism, Chang began to see the potential in Hyunjin's plan. The first step was to expose the cracks in Suk's seemingly perfect life, starting with his marriage. Later, they both visit the chairman's office. Suk apologizes for his actions but still harbors some anger. His father already contacted his in-laws. During the call, Chairman told his father-in-law that he will handle things to prevent the situation from escalating into a divorce. Meanwhile, his wife chooses to distance herself for a while. In a heated moment, Chairman angrily confronts his son, berating him for his behavior. He yells that if he wanted to play around with girls, he should have done so while he was single, like his brother Chang. He demands an explanation for Chang's frequent visits to the police station, and Chang, now remorseful, apologizes and promises to be more careful in the future. He bows deeply, assuring that he will be more mindful of his actions and his position moving forward. The chairman, surprisingly, becomes lenient, acknowledging that it was the others who instigated the fight and praising Chang for trying to avoid conflict. He pats Chang on the shoulder, expressing pride in his efforts to handle the situation. In the meantime, Suk vows to find and punish the person who informed his wife about the hotel incident. On the other hand, Chang feels elated that his strict father has finally recognized and praised him. He sees Hyunjin, thanks him for his strategic advice, and eagerly asks what steps he should take to become the chairman. Hyunjin cautions him not to get too excited, reminding him that they have only won the first round and brought Suk back to square one. To truly become chairman, Chang must win 2 more critical battles. Hyunjin advises him to start at the company as a minor employee to learn the ropes and promises to reveal the full plan when the time is right. He also mentions that their alliance is based on a quid pro quo, and Chang must grant him a favor in return. Curious, Chang inquires about Hyunjin's wish, asserting that he is ready to do anything for him. Hyunjin then shares his desire. Meanwhile, Miho's mother is furious and slaps Youngchul, accusing him of using flimsy excuses for not expelling the student who hit her son. She orders him to take action. Youngchul, worried, reflects on his earlier request for Hyunjin to humbly accept his mistakes to mitigate punishment. However, Hyunjin warns him to think strategically, threatening to expose Youngchul's hush money and extramarital affair, which would ruin them both. As the meeting day approaches, Miho's mother pressures the principal to expel Hyunjin. Youngchul, under immense stress, contemplates his next move. During the meeting, the committee advisor demands to know what exactly transpired. Youngchul rises and explains that Miho and his group have been bullying their classmates. He recalls seeing Chang, who is now Hyunjin's legal guardian, in the red light district and wonders how he assumed this role. Recognizing this as a chance to switch allegiances, Youngchul declares that it's absurd for the attacker to be treated as the victim. The principal seeks clarity to avoid misunderstandings, prompting Youngchul to recount multiple reports of Miho's group harassing students. Initially, Youngchul had scolded them, but the harassment intensified over time. A few days ago, Miho bullied Youngmin, and Hyunjin intervened to protect him. Despite this, the principal insists that regardless of the reasons, violence cannot be justified, especially since it led to 3 students being hospitalized for the first time in the school's history. To prevent such incidents in the future, they must thoroughly investigate and appropriately punish the responsible student. The deliberation begins with the committee hearing from student Miho about the incident. Miho recounts that he saw Hyunjin assaulting Minchul, who was already on the ground, and insists that other students witnessed Hyunjin starting the fight. He requests the principal to summon another witness to support his claim. Miho's mother rises and passionately urges everyone to look at her son's injuries, arguing that such violence is intolerable and could affect other students as well. The other parents present nod in agreement, expressing that no justification exists for such brutality, and demand that the principal take strict action against Hyunjin. In the meantime, at the hospital, others speculate that Hyunjin is likely to be punished due to Miho's mother's influence. Minchul, now more determined than ever, plans to make Hyunjin's life miserable until he breaks down and begs for mercy. Sensing the situation's urgency, Chang intervenes and asserts that it's time to uncover the truth about that day. He accuses Miho of being a malicious instigator who orchestrated the entire incident. Chang reveals that he has personally investigated Minchul's group and found that they have been involved in bullying, theft, and other misconduct. He challenges the principal, questioning why the school is covering up these issues and hinting at possible bribery from the parents. Chang continues, arguing that the root cause of the problem must be addressed. He asks if the parents and teachers would stand idly by if their own children were being assaulted. Miho's mother, furious, demands to know who Chang is, having heard that Hyunjin has no parents. Chang introduces himself as Hyunjin's guardian and the eldest son of Myunjin Construction Company. He emphasizes that Hyunjin is like a younger brother to him, and he dropped everything to attend the hearing when he learned of it. Chang then announces his intention to sponsor the school under Myunjin Construction's name, but retracts his offer, citing the school's corruption and poor management. He insists that schools should instill moral and just values, questioning why a student who defended a classmate is being punished. The parents and the principal are taken aback by Chang's status and his connection to Hyunjin. The principal is caught in a dilemma, realizing that siding with Miho could jeopardize any potential relationship with Myunjin Construction and might even lead to his expulsion from the city. However, siding with Hyunjin would mean severing ties with Miho. Ultimately, the principal shifts his stance, acknowledging reports of bullying since the beginning of the school year, with Miho as the ringleader. He labels Miho a perpetrator and praises Hyunjin as one of the school's top students, insisting that there must be a valid reason for his actions. He then suggests hearing Hyunjin's side of the story. Hyunjin, relieved that his side is finally being considered, reflects on his past experiences where his pleas were ignored, leading to his tragic fate. He recounts how he repeatedly informed teachers about Minchul's group's bullying, only to be dismissed with claims that Minchul wouldn't engage in such behavior. He questions why he is being scrutinized not just for a single act of self-defense, but because adults perceive him as powerless. He demands that the bullies be punished first, threatening to expose the incident publicly if no action is taken, which would tarnish the reputation of Chanil High School and bring disgrace to Daesun. He insists that only severe punishment will silence him. Miho's mother, defiant, declares that she will never allow her son to be held accountable. She calls her husband, informing him that the principal and teachers are unjustly blaming Miho due to pressure from Myunjin Construction's eldest son. Her husband, shocked to learn of Chang's involvement, urges her to return home immediately, warning that Chang has the power to ruin their family. In the end, the committee decides that Hyunjin will complete 100 hours of volunteer work as a penalty for his involvement in the altercation. Meanwhile, Miho and 3 other students are expelled from the school. Enraged, Miho charges at Hyunjin, but his mother intercepts him. Hyunjin then commands Miho to get on his knees and beg for forgiveness. Confused and defiant, Miho questions why he should kneel since he's already been expelled. Hyunjin directs him to ask his mother for guidance. She, in turn, instructs Miho to kneel, and with reluctance, Miho bows before Hyunjin, pleading for forgiveness. However, Hyunjin coldly remarks that this act of submission brings him no satisfaction and ominously tells Miho to pray for his future, which will be filled with misery. That night, while Hyunjin is at home, he receives messages from Minchul, who urgently requests a meeting, claiming to have something important to share. Hyunjin agrees to meet him. Upon arrival, Minchul expresses his gratitude, but Hyunjin cuts him off, urging him to get to the point. Minchul confesses that the bullying and violence were entirely his fault and acknowledges the pain he has caused other students. After spending a week in the hospital, he accepts the committee's decision and vows to change his behavior, pleading with Hyunjin to overlook this incident just once. He explains that the teacher mentioned Hyunjin's agreement could save them from expulsion, which would otherwise ruin their lives. Minchul then reveals that they were acting on orders from someone else. Hyunjin, already aware of this, recalls a time from his past when a bullied student, similar to him, committed suicide, leaving behind a note exposing the truth. He knows that the Golden Circle, an organization rooted in prestigious schools in Gangnam, orchestrates such acts. The founder of the Golden Circle, seeing the potential profit in school violence, recruited bullies and aligned with wealthy students' parents, offering protection in exchange for money. This system ensured that the students under their control excelled academically, while rivals were systematically eliminated. In the future Hyunjin envisioned, the outer members of the Golden Circle were eventually exposed, but the case was swiftly buried. To exact his revenge on those who condemned him to a living hell, Hyunjin realizes he must dismantle the Golden Circle entirely. He presses Minchul for details about the organization's operations in Seoul and Gyeonggi. Minchul discloses that Yangmin, a senior bully at their school, is involved but stops short of confirming his membership in the Golden Circle. Despite this, Yangmin's connection to the organization is undeniable, although extracting information from him will be challenging due to his strength and influence. Hyunjin then asks Minchul if he truly desires forgiveness but warns him that he will demonstrate the consequences each time they meet. He slaps Minchul across the face, reflecting on his past life where he was an ignorant father, oblivious to the suffering of others. Despite their successes, he was stunned by their prosperous lives. Now, with karma at play, he vows to inflict lasting trauma on those who wronged him, ensuring they suffer for the rest of their lives. The following day, the atmosphere at school is tense. Students whisper about Hyunjin, now branded a villain. Silence falls as he enters the classroom, everyone wary of his presence. Hyunjin sits at his desk when Jangmin approaches him, thanking him for his actions and offering to help him with anything he needs. Hyunjin, unimpressed, asks why Jangmin is showing gratitude now when he was too scared to testify before. He makes it clear that he no longer cares about what happens to Jangmin. Elsewhere, a student asks Yangmin about their next steps now that the Minchul gang has been expelled, noting that their plan has been ruined. Moreover, they can't touch Hyunjin because he is backed by the first son of Myungjin Construction. Yangmin, unfazed, says they can still make a lot of money by taking control of the high school. Hyunjin, meanwhile, is strategizing. He knows that to dismantle the Golden Circle, he must excel academically. Their targets are the top-performing students, and if he consistently achieves the best grades, the Golden Circle will be forced to act against him. This will make him a thorn in their side, as he had high grades in middle school. After school, Hyunjin heads to Yangda Kayal's academy, Korea's first-ever MMA fighter to become the UFL world champion. He tells Kayal that he wants to register and become proficient in fighting. At the same time, Yangmin contacts a student named Jin Woo, who was previously in a wrestling academy, and asks him to incapacitate Hyunjin permanently. At the gym, the owner, Du-chu, tells Hyunjin that he has come to the right place and assures him that he will meet his requirements. Hyunjin recognizes Du-chu despite his mustache, knowing he is the former UFL champion, Yangdu Kaiyol. When asked why he wants to join the gym, Hyunjin explains that he wants to become strong enough to defeat bullies. Du-chu, however, discourages this motivation, stating that the gym is not a place to learn to fight for revenge. He suggests Hyunjin work out to avoid being bullied but refuses to accept him under his current mindset. Hyunjin reflects on Du-chu's past. As Korea's first UFL champion, Du-chu could have lived a prosperous life based on his fame alone, but his career ended abruptly when he was found to have used anabolic steroids. Despite this, Hyunjin believes in Du-chu's talent, as he had once transformed an untalented fighter into a champion. Hyunjin offers Du-chu 100 million won, aware that Du-chu needs money. He promises to transfer the money within a day if Du-chu agrees to train him, paying in advance so that Du-chu won't lose anything even if Hyunjin quits. Hyunjin is fully aware of the risks, including potential disability or imprisonment, but he is determined. Du-chu agrees to teach him, emphasizing that he will not allow Hyunjin to use drugs, as he has already made that mistake himself. He then challenges Hyunjin to endure one round in the ring with him to prove his determination. If Hyunjin can last the round, Du-chu will accept the offer. That night, when Hyunjin returns home, his grandmother is shocked to see his battered condition and asks what happened. A few hours earlier, he had faced Du-chu in the ring, tasked with enduring one 3-minute round. Hyunjin had stepped forward, landing a punch on Du-chu's face, but was swiftly knocked to the ground with a blow to his nose. Du-chu tells Hyunjin to stand up, reminding him that only 10 seconds have passed and there are still 2 minutes and 50 seconds left. Hyunjin rises again, but Du-chu launches a flurry of attacks. Hyunjin tries to block, but Du-chu's speed and power are overwhelming. After a series of punches and kicks, Hyunjin is knocked down once more. Du-chu commands him to get up again, and Hyunjin complies, knowing he must endure to prove himself. As he takes more blows, Hyunjin realizes his stamina is waning rapidly. He resolves to muster any momentum he can. Du-chu, thinking he went easy on Hyunjin to ensure his wounds heal quickly, is ready to call it a day. But Hyunjin, bruised and bloodied, insists he can continue fighting. Surprised by his resilience, Du-chu agrees to continue but warns that he won't hold back. Du-chu attacks with full force, but despite the onslaught, Hyunjin keeps getting up. Du-chu is moved by his determination, understanding the desperation driving him. He knows he can't allow Hyunjin to follow a path of regret similar to his own. With a final punch, finally, the 3 minutes end. Du-chu tells Hyunjin to go to the hospital and not to reveal who injured him. He gives Hyunjin his bank account number for the money transfer. Reflecting on his own situation, Du-chu remembers a recent offer from a broker representing a new MMA association. They proposed a lucrative deal, contingent on his use of performance-enhancing drugs and participation in their tournament. Had Hyunjin not come through with the money, Du-chu might have accepted the deal. Instead, he texts the broker to decline. Hyunjin, back home, tells his grandmother he got into a fight with some kids at school and inquires about their housing subscription savings account. He suggests investing the money in a Myeonjin construction apartment program, hoping they might secure a deal. His grandmother agrees, relieved that she won't need to question the source of the money, which Hyunjin had intended to give her outright. The next day, Yangmin praises Jin Woo, mistakenly believing he is responsible for Hyunjin's condition. Yangmin tells Jin Woo to spread the word that they are close and plan to hang out after school. Jin Woo, seeing an opportunity, agrees, though he's confused. He heads to Hyunjin's class to assess the situation and is shocked by Hyunjin's battered appearance. Jin Woo concludes that Hyunjin must have been beaten outside of school for his arrogance. Yangmin, believing Jin Woo's supposed actions, thinks Hyunjin is not as strong as he seemed. He plans to beat Hyunjin next time and warns the other students to avoid him. After school, Hyunjin heads to the gym where Du-chu instructs him to work out for 2 hours. Du-chu sets a strict condition: if Hyunjin can't endure this, he will not teach him further. Understanding that to defeat Yangmin, who has trained for years, he must endure this physical training without faltering, Hyunjin accepts the challenge. Moreover, Yangmin is not his ultimate target. Hyunjin aims to expose the elusive golden circle hiding behind him. Du-chu, surprised by Hyunjin's stamina, wonders about his true purpose. Recognizing the boy's potential, Du-chu decides to try a different training method. He tells Hyunjin that he has always sought to excel without illegal practices, so even if his career ends, his students will succeed. From now on, he will apply the results of his research to Hyunjin's training, promising that if Hyunjin can keep up, he will become strong enough to make anyone kneel. A week later, Kim Siwoo, a classmate, approaches Hyunjin. Siwoo expresses his discomfort with how the other students are ignoring Hyunjin and declares he doesn't want to be like them. He reveals that Jinwoo has been threatening all the students, forbidding them from talking to Hyunjin, and even threatening to kill anyone who tries to get close to him. Despite the danger, Siwoo refuses to ignore his friend being bullied, even if it means he might get beaten. This moment stirs a memory in Hyunjin of Siwoo from his past life. Back then, after learning Hyunjin was being bullied, Siwoo stood up for him, distancing himself from Mincheol's group. As a result, Siwoo became the target of their teasing. One day, when Hyunjin was a patient, Siwoo apologized for not protecting him, admitting he was scared of getting beaten during every break. In the present, Hyunjin coldly asks Siwoo not to act like they are close, insisting he can handle his own problems. Siwoo responds that he will do what he wants and will never let Hyunjin be alone. Despite Hyunjin's harsh words, Siwoo leaves, determined to help his friend. After class, Hyunjin finds himself unconsciously waiting for Siwoo. He overhears students talking about Siwoo being taken by Jinwoo for a beating. Alarmed, he rushes to the scene. Meanwhile, Jinwoo confronts Siwoo, demanding to know why he spoke to Hyunjin after being warned not to. Siwoo defiantly questions why he should listen to Jinwoo and asserts his right to choose his friends, declaring that he won't abandon Hyunjin. Siwoo immediately kicks Jinwoo in the face, causing him to fall. Jinwoo instructs his friends to attack Siwoo. They move to attack but Siwoo kicks one in the face and then a punch to other one. Despite their efforts, Siwoo gets punched and worries about Hyunjin, thinking that he won't abandon Hyunjin. Jinwoo, now enraged, steps forward and punches Siwoo, taunting him about his martial arts skills. He then starts beating Siwoo brutally while the other students watch in silence. Jinwoo declares that he will continue beating Siwoo during breaks, lunch, and after school. Exactly then, Hyunjin arrives. He realizes that to confront Jinwoo, he needs a strategy. Recognizing that Jinwoo relies on his size, Hyunjin decides to taunt him about his weight, calling him fat and accusing him of needing others to fight for him. Jinwoo's friends warn Hyunjin to back down, saying he will end up crippled like Siwoo. But Hyunjin remains defiant, ready to stand his ground against Jinwoo. Jinwoo orders his friends to stand back, saying he'll handle Hyunjin himself. Charging at Hyunjin recklessly, Jinwoo is shocked when Hyunjin punches him back. Angered and frustrated, Jinwoo attacks again without thinking, giving Hyunjin the opportunity to exploit his blind aggression. Utilizing the techniques he learned from Duchu, Hyunjin lands precise blows to Jinwoo's face and stomach, quickly taking him down. Despite Jinwoo's fall, Hyunjin continues to beat him relentlessly, causing the onlookers to worry that Jinwoo might be seriously injured. Desperate, Jinwoo begs for mercy and apologizes for his earlier rudeness. However, when Jinwoo tries to muster the strength for another attack, he confesses that he acted on Yeoman's orders, feeling he had no choice, and promises not to harm Hyunjin or Siwoo again. Hyunjin warns Jinwoo and his friends never to touch Siwoo again, threatening to hunt them down if they do. He then escorts Siwoo to the infirmary, advising him to stay out of his affairs to avoid further trouble. Siwoo, however, insists that he will continue to stand by Hyunjin, asserting that their friendship is unbreakable and he won't abandon him, even if it means facing more danger. Hyunjin, determined to dismantle the gang that has been tormenting them, tells Siwoo that he cannot share his plans and urges him to stay away to avoid further harm. In the other class, Yangmin receives news of a salary increase and revels in the thought of earning millions of won for harassing students. Meanwhile, Hyunjin tracks down Yangmin and confronts him. As he launches his attack, Yangmin tries to dodge, questioning who Hyunjin is. Noticing Hyunjin's fighting skills but recognizing the lack of power and predictability in his attacks, Yangmin tries to strike back. Hyunjin introduces himself and reveals that he is one Yangmin has been looking for. When Hyunjin attempts to hit Yangmin with a chair, Yangmin catches his hand and punched him in the stomach, Hyunjin finding it bearable compared to Duchu's training. Realizing he cannot defeat Yangmin in a straightforward fight, Hyunjin aims to prove himself, prepared to risk everything. He uses a leg lift to push Yangmin back and dangles him out of a window, threatening to end him. Terrified, Yangmin asks what Hyunjin wants. Hyunjin declares his intent to finish things once and for all. Other students arrive and pull Hyunjin away from the window, but he continues to shout threats at Yangmin, vowing that the conflict will not end until Yangmin is dead. 30 minutes later, an urgent announcement over the school's PA system calls several students to the principal's office, indicating that the situation has escalated to a critical level. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, don't forget to subscribe.